Hi, this is Dr. Patrick Russell. I wanted to walk through step 3 in the parables research paper process. I'm here actually in our library at Sacred Heart Seminary and School of Theology. Above my shoulder here, on the other side, sorry, is the bound volumes of various journals, academic journals. So you've been accessing the articles via our databases, in digital format, but to make the point that these are not only available in digital format, but also in hard copy in the library. Obviously, there's a great deal of value in terms of access to have them available digitally, but you basically, academic journals traditionally are published 4 times a year, and then those are collected and bound together each year. All right, so usually, sometimes they come out monthly, but you can see down here, if I walk over here, we have here, for example, just grabbing what's right in front of me, here's the Thomas. So this is another academic journal, obviously not a biblical academic journal. Well, this is the volume 4. This is the last volume for this year of 2022, actually, so from last year. But then when all 4 of them, and you can see the other ones sitting right down here, ready to be bound together ultimately, so that they will have and been placed up on the shelves above. So just to give you a sense, when we are reading and accessing different journal articles, they're part of these journals, these academic journals that come out typically 4 times a year, and then they're usually collected and bound together in a large volume and placed in our holdings. Now with the capacity of digital information, some journals are only published digitally, and some of them are published both ways. That's actually the norm now, and so sometimes the library will only order them and possess them in digital format. It's much more cost efficient that way. All right, so just a little intro there, but I want to talk about this assignment that you have to do, which is you're to access one of these an article that you have collected on your reference list that is digitally available through our ATLA database here at Sacred Heart, and read it and assess it. So I just want to talk about how you do that. So when you go to the Populi page, you will find on the analytical exercises page, you will find a little description of this, and then this form right here. You can also access the same information if you go to lessons and go down to the bottom of the lessons. You will see this same information available here on the parables research page. It looks like I haven't clicked on everything to get through to the this particular lesson, step 3, because I haven't watched the video yet, but if I watch the video, then I'd be able to, click on step 3. All right, and you get the same information there. But I'm going to access this through this week's lesson, which is Luke chapters 1 through 9. And then it's on analytical exercises, and here we are. And there's a little description of what to do, but really what I want to do is talk about this form so you know how to use it. Okay, so first thing you want to do is download it, right? So click this little arrow here, and you should see popping down here that it's been downloaded. Then you should be able to go to your file, download as original as a Word document so that you can access it and type into it. So you can see here that it's loading up there. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of time, obviously. If I go to downloads, then I should be able to find this once it's all done working. There you go, Exegetical article assessment. Click that up. And we need to let it spin a little again. And really what the point of this template is to capture the important information from the article so that you can use it within your research paper. All right, so that's what we're going to work on. It's still spinning, a little slow. And just kind of explain how you use this document. Okay, so I'm not sure why it's not immediately downloading for me, but just because I don't want to spend the time waiting, it'll probably interfere here in a moment. But let's just go here and work off of the the visual we can see right here. Oh, here we go. It's not responding. We're having a few technological issues here, obviously. Let's see if we're good now. Okay, well, still spinning. Come on, there we go. Okay, so you'll be able to download this and then be able to put it on your computer or laptop and then type in the information. So the first thing you want to do is put your name here, write out your name, and then give the bibliographical information about this article. Make sure you give the full bibliographical reference, right? The full citation reference. You refer to the Sacred Heart style manual if you must, to make sure you have the right format. So you're going to have author, date, the year of date, the title of the article, and then you're going to have the journal, the title of the journal, the number, and the page numbers. So follow that format, but you're going to reproduce that here, right underneath article bibliographical information. You're going to give the full citation. Then what you're to do is provide the article's thesis. You will find, if it's a good article, well written, it should have the thesis articulated. There should be one sentence that captures the main argument of the article. That often appears in the first paragraph. Sometimes an author will do, sort of introductory discussions, and then in the second paragraph you'll get the articulation of the thesis. So you'll have to figure out what that is. Like, what's the overarching argument of the author? Now, in a maybe not as well written article, maybe the author doesn't state that, or it's sort of obscure. So it may be, if you have a well-written article, all you'll have to do is reproduce that one sentence, and it's only going to be one sentence. It's not a thesis statement should be stated in one sentence. If, again, not well-written article, if you're stating it in multiple sentences, then you need to craft it as a one-sentence statement about what the main argument of the paper is, of the article is. As I said, sometimes you'll find that in the second paragraph, but it needs to, on this paper, right, in this report, it has to be one sentence, regardless of how the author articulated it. All right, you need to boil it down to one sentence. Article, then you'll just find the right sentence. Say, oh, this is his main point. This is his main argument. And that's actually the crucial thing you want to find. What is he arguing about how this parable should be interpreted? The proper interpretation of it. Okay, good. So that's the thesis. So once you reproduce that sentence, you put it there. Then you go on, and then you outline the article's main arguments and points. All right. So this would be, and again, this is supposed to be an outline. Of course, you're going to expand this. This is a Word document. You're going to use more space than what's right here, but you're going to list kind of the steps of the author's argument, right? The progression of it. This is not everything that's in the article. It's the main points that he uses to build and substantiate his thesis, right? His or her thesis. That's what you want there, is just outlines. Put page numbers so you can say, okay, this is where this argument, now there's going to be supporting data for that, maybe that main point, or these 5 points, and there's going to be data, 3 paragraphs for point 1, 4 paragraphs for point 2. Okay, so you're just going to give me point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say you think there's 5 main lines of argumentation in the article. You don't have to give me all the other material underneath that. If you want, you can, but that's not what I think you need to do here. But then give me the page numbers. Make sure in parentheses after you articulate those main arguments, put in the page numbers. And say pages 155 to 157, or whatever it might be in a parenthetical statement. Then, after you've outlined the argument, the article really, then you go down to the next one, which is categorization of the article's interpretation using Parables Project's taxonomy. If you remember from the PowerPoint and really from the article that I gave to you, my the paper that I wrote for a presentation to the Society of Biblical Literature, the SBL, in which I talked about this parables project. And we have been working on that, and we've identified 4 main ways people interpret the parables. They mainly think they have a moral argument, that the point of the parable is some sort of moral teaching or some sort of theological teaching, right? Or some sort of spiritual point is being made, or some sort of social point. Okay, and the social point would be, some critique of culture or critique of politics or something like that, or some point about politics or some point about the ways people relate to each other economically or what have you. Okay, so those are the 4 baskets. Those are the 4 categories. Moral, you should act. The point of the parable is how you should act, how you should behave, and that's what it's getting at. That's what the point of the parable is. It's theological. It's making some claims about God and belief and how one should, what beliefs one should hold, or what attitudes of faith one should have, or spiritual in terms of how one should live the spiritual life, or some perspective on how the spiritual life should be lived, or social. It's something about how we should be organizing ourselves in terms of economics or politics, something of that nature. Those are the 4 baskets. So you're going to have to decide that. It's unlikely that the article is going to make some claim about that, because this is our, right, the Parable Project research teams, these are our categories. We scanned research on the parables. We found that these were the 4 dominant baskets that people used when they said, what does this parable mean? And you're going to find that different biblical scholars, some will say, oh, this, the point of the parable is to make this moral point. And then you'll read another article say, oh, there's the reason for this parable being delivered by Jesus, he's trying to make a spiritual point about how you live the spiritual life. Okay, so yeah, different possible ways of understanding the parable. It could be that the biblical scholar says that the parable means is making both a spiritual and a moral point. Our research shows that typically people fall into one basket or another, but it could be that, in answer to this categorization section, you may say, well, his thesis is arguing that the parable should be understood from a moral perspective and a spiritual perspective, or a social and a theological perspective, but so see what you pull out of there. But generally it's one or the other. Okay, then finally, the final section is called Key Quotes, Insights, and or Material from the article. And what you're going to do here is simply articulate or put down, not even articulate, you're just going to put down things that struck you. You're going to read this article, and ultimately you need to write a paper, and you're going to write a paper about the proper interpretation of this parable, and therefore, based upon that interpretation, how to preach it. So you may find that it's helpful to capture now kind of key quotes. They're like, wow, this is really a great point this author's making. I could see using this sentence or these couple sentences and incorporating that into a paper. Now, you really don't know yet, right? Because you don't know what you're going to argue about the parable. But all the same, if there's something really valuable that you found in the article, then write it down. It may not be a quote, right? Now, if it's a quote, then make sure you put them in quotation marks so you know it's a quote, and also put the page number down. Actually, you should always put a page number down for anything you capture here, because you're taking ideas, not just words, but also ideas from another source if you're going to incorporate it in your paper. And so you need to know where what page number that is for when you write your paper. So, maybe you're taking an idea. Maybe it's not a quote, but you may have, he may be making some point that you summarize in your own words, because that's a little more efficient and gets at the heart of the thing. So you're going to write down a certain insight, but again, put down the page number or numbers where you drew that from, so that when you write your paper, you can cite that. Or it could simply be, some interesting material he has It's not a quote. It's not like one big insight, but there's some observations you make about different parts of the parable that you found helpful in understanding the parable. Then you can write that down too. Okay, so those are the elements of this report. So once you read the article, you're going to fill this out. And again, give you spaces here, but certainly the outline is going to use, you're going to expand that. Same thing at the end here in terms of key quotes, insights, and materials. But I do not expect you to go beyond 2 pages at most. 1 page, you may find you can do this in 1 page. But certainly don't go past 2 pages, or at least, you can, because you may find more quotes, you may be incorporating more material. But I would not, for the different categories up to the key quotes, insights, and material, everything above that should not be longer than 2 pages. And I would really encourage you to keep it to maybe 1 page or 1.5 pages, okay? And that the whole thing shouldn't be more than 2 pages. So that's what I'd shoot for. Use single space. These are just your notes. Okay, so that's what you're to do. That's the goal. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me. Hope this was helpful for you to understand what you're to do in this project. Thanks so much.